What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner. I'm one of your co-hosts, Simon Villanos.
I am one of your other co-hosts, Cody Stoffer.
And I am Liam Hughes.
All right, and we back at it. We go review Last Chance U episode 5. So this was one of the more explosive episodes of this season, I feel. It was definitely a turning point. So let's go ahead and let's talk raw reactions. You know, what we think about it, what popped at first, all of that stuff. Do one of y'all want to start, or I could start? Either one is good.
Should we give like a quick recap?
Yeah, sure, we could do that. All right, so basically this episode, to say the least, was pretty much all about the city game, right? And so the city, for those of you who are here, let me backtrack even more. All right, so they're coming off a pretty tough loss. Right, it was where RJ Barrett, not RJ Barrett, RJ Stewart had his little I don't want to be mean about it, but he had a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of a meltdown and whatnot, and they lost a close one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that was his feature episode, right? Last episode.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was the RJ episode.
Yeah, and that one got heated. And so, this one was definitely in terms of the season and the game and this whole team and whatnot, this game/week was really important for a lot of reasons, because after that, everyone was kind of down, and so this is the game that they needed to catapult themselves forward with momentum and whatnot, because they still had a chance of making the playoffs, a slim chance, and they'd had to run the table, but a chance nonetheless. And so in this episode, we saw Ryan Mackey come back, so Dior could finally move back to receiver, and there was some work to do there, I'm not gonna lie. Here, I gotta ask y'all first, what do y'all think about Ryan Mackey as of right now, or Dior Walker? Because in my opinion, Ryan was, I don't know if he's usually like this. Maybe it was nerves as well. But whether it was in practice or in the game, he was just not good, to be honest. He was missing a lot of open throws.
Ryan Mackey was bad and very concerning for the outlook of the Laney team heading forward, in my opinion. I don't know if he looked rusty more than anything. That's the impression that I got was, he did his rehab, but there's a difference between physical rehab and actually playing football and throwing a football and making reads, right? So, yes. And I think that maybe his injury, he was wearing the knee brace too. I don't know if y'all noticed that, but he was wearing a knee brace, so I think that part of it may be nerves as well. But that might just be me. I don't know what Liam thinks.
Yeah, I mean, he came back from a torn meniscus in 4 weeks. That's right. Insane. So, I mean, he probably was still suffering from the injury, at least to some degree. Maybe he can actually go out and play, right? But I think it was still holding him back to whatever degree it was, and that added in with the rust of not playing for 4 weeks, or not being able to physically play for 4 weeks, probably all added up to the poor performance that we saw.
Right. So do you think it was physical rust or mental rust? Because in my opinion, or I guess not confidential rust, but when I say mental rust, I mean maybe his confidence was a little shot. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he was just not feeling he was good. He was maybe still worrying about the knee a bit more. But in my opinion, I felt at least from a intellectual, mental standpoint, he was making the right reads. I don't think he was not making the right reads. He was just not making the throws.
Right.
That's the problem. But he would make the right reads. He wouldn't do what Dior did and throw it into triple coverage or struggle like that. He was making the right reads. But so did you mean physical or mental?
It certainly could have been both. I would say the physical was probably still holding him back from the injury. And then, there's always a little bit of doubt when the fourth stringer is winning games. You're coming in as the first stringer and being does this team need me? Am I really the one? If I mess up this throw, are they just going to put Dior in? you know? So I feel like there's probably some of that going on as well.
That's a really good point. I like that.
This team doesn't feel like Ryan Mackey's team, if that makes sense. Like,
no, definitely not.
And if you're a quarterback, like, especially on a passing team, right? Like, you need to take command of that, and Mackey just doesn't give that off, if that makes sense. Like, you know, the quarterbacks coach earlier in the season was telling some of the other quarterbacks that they need to play with BDE, and Mackey just doesn't have that. He doesn't have any confidence, and he just doesn't have swagger either. Like, bro, look at your weapons, you know? Granted, Dior was also dropping some passes as well, which gets a lot worse. And there's definitely some chemistry that was lost from, like, when Mackey went out till now.
100%.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, Dior was definitely rusty. Like, he dropped in, I wouldn't say alarming amount of passes, but enough passes where, you know, it's something to make a note of moving forward. Do you have something to add on to that? Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Yeah, and I mean, Dior as well was probably focusing on some shaking off some rust at the receiver position too, because this was his first game back as a receiver. So
yeah,
definitely could have all mixed together there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Did you hear that stat right before the City game about Dior and how he's still the leading receiver even though he played quarterback for like 3 weeks?
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But I also think that speaks volumes to the adjusted game plan with Dior. They ran the ball a lot more, I feel, with Dior at quarterback because they had the option of like a read option.
Right.
So
yeah, it's not like Dior was going out there and throwing for 300 yards every game and still being the lead receiver.
Definitely not. But he also only had 240 yards.
Oh god.
So that means nobody else put together more than 240 yards in like 3 games with Dior and then the 1 game with their starter. Wait, no, is that right? No. Sorry, they're 2-3, right?
Yes.
Okay, my bad. So it's the 3 games with Dior, the 1 game with their like original starter Ryan, and then the other game with I don't even know his irrelevant. I don't even remember his name. Dang it, what's his name? The one who didn't know the plays. So that's
I mean, he didn't throw for like a single yard, so
yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's, like I said, I don't know if that's necessarily a receiver thing.
Yeah, you're right. All right, well then let's move on with that. Here, quick side note. They opened up with the story about Rajon's dad and how that went down, and that definitely got to me because I didn't notice this the first time, but the second time, and maybe this is just a personal thing, but like, I guess Rajon's dad actually passed away the same year my own father did, so I know what it's like to be a teenager and not have a father either. You know, because he's not, I mean, Rajon's not that much younger than me. There's maybe a 2-year difference. And so there's that. And so that was really interesting to hear about. And a quote that from Rajon that really like popped out to me was, so he was talking about his dad and how his death kind of flipped a switch in him. You know what I'm saying? Like he kind of went from like, okay, I don't want to say lazy, but like, you know, he was playing for fun and he was having a good time and whatnot, but maybe there wasn't that urgency to the way he was playing, if that makes any sense. But he did say, you know, this is the quote that stood out, but he did say, I got to do it for the people who can't do it anymore, you know, and I think that really, that stuck out to me because that's a very mature thing for him to say. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, with Rajon, like, I wasn't quite sure where his maturity levels were, just because some of the, you know, I know he talks a lot of trash, and that's a thing, and that's cool and whatnot. But you know, when it comes to maturity and accountability, up until maybe this episode, it kind of just seemed like, you know, he was in his older brother's shadow. Because Beam did say at the beginning, like, you know, Rajon, he has to grow up. You know, he has to grow up. His brother, he's been taking care, his older brother, that is, he's been taking care of him a lot, taking on a lot of the responsibilities. But, you know, now Rajon, at least in Coach Beam's words, has the keys to the car now. and so he has to be his own man. But that quote really stuck out to me. It was definitely a turning point, I guess, in my opinion, of Rajon. Is that a fair opinion, or what do y'all think about that?
Well, I was definitely caught by surprise from that story. I guess
Really?
I just never really thought about. I guess I just didn't really think about where Rajon's dad was, because it was like, I don't know. I was just watching him play football.
Sure.
And then, to find out, kind of like a little bit of the bumpy relationship that they had. And then for things to start to get better before the tragedy struck the way it did was just like a huge bummer.
Yeah.
And I really felt bad for him. And, at the same time, I also felt like he was a lot stronger in my eyes too, because of the purpose that he got from it. Like, there's a lot of different ways to cope with grief, and to be fueled by it is really, really powerful to me. So, I gained a lot of respect for him, and as far as his maturity goes, it kind of showed me like a more mature side of him. Like, I never doubted his commitment to football, but like, I know how serious he is about football, if that makes sense.
I like that. All right, cool. Liam, did you have thoughts?
Pretty similar to Cody. Just. That's a tough thing, obviously, to go through. And rest in peace to Rajon's father. Rest in peace to your father as well, Simon. And it's good that he's using it as fuel rather than using it as an excuse. Not that I think he would, but there are people out there who would unfortunately use it as an excuse to kind of go down a darker path in life, and let anger take hold of them. And especially with Rajon, where his father was murdered in a basically an act of like pretty senseless violence. I don't think the guy even probably meant to kill Rajon's father. He's probably just drunk, because I think it happened outside of a club, and the guy was drunk. So, really unfortunate, and just like senselessly sad,
Oh, no, you're right. And, unfortunately, that's life. Sometimes, look, I get what you're saying, Cody. Like, it was definitely a little bit more heartbreaking because things were getting better. And, it kind of seemed like and this happens a lot, but maybe not a lot, but it happens in life. But, sometimes you get into a relationship that, or have a relationship that may have started rocky or was rocky, but it's getting better, and then you just don't reach that peak in that relationship, or what it could have been. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's love, respect, all of that stuff. And so that's definitely a heartbreaking thing, thinking about the what ifs, especially because, it's his parent, right? And so like y'all said, I definitely respect Rajon a lot more. It showed a more mature side to him. Like, you could see more of the young adult rather than like the young in him. You know what I'm saying? Because it's weird to think that at these JUCOs, these kids are really mostly just teenagers. You know what I mean? Like, you may have one or two 20-year-olds on the team, but most of them are teenagers. They're not that far off from high school at all, to be honest. And it's a little crazy, And so it is good to see some of that maturity. And as a coach moving forward, or just, as a coach looking at him, or a scout or whatever, like, it's good to see that character development. You know what I mean? But with that being said, let's move on. So let's get to the meat of this episode. How about that? Let's get to the meat of this episode. All right. So this game, not only was it important because of where this team was during the season, but it was also rivalry week. And, in each of the Last Chance U in each of the Last Chance U seasons, there's always that one episode that is a rivalry week episode. In Indy, it was Garden City. At EMCC, it was I don't know, whatever team was rated, or no, sorry, at Indy, it was some like scrub team called Delta or whatever. Y'all will learn about that later and why that's an actual rivalry moving forward. But they always have a rivalry episode, and they're always intense. They're usually like, I don't want to say like the peak of each season, but they're pretty close to the peak of each season, at least I would say. This isn't the peak just yet, though, but they play a really big role almost always. And so I don't know, like this was a little different, I feel, because these two teams are actually like, should I say this? Like they're actually pretty close to each other, proximity, like distance wise. In those other seasons, like those teams weren't exactly like next door neighbors, but you know, the city, for those of you who don't know, just saying this again, it's San Francisco City College. And then, you know, Oakland is referred to as the town, right? And so it's called the city versus the town, that whole type of thing. And the way they set this up, or the narrative that was put out there about this rivalry game, that, at least in my opinion, was that, you know, this game was between, you got the bougie, you got the, maybe not the upper class, but you got maybe a little bit more privilege against, you know, the tougher kids on the block, you know, the kids who grind for everything, who, you know, things are a little bit different, maybe not as given as some of these other kiddos from the city. And so that's how they framed it, you know. And personally, I love that narrative, because for me it reminds me a lot of like my own playing days and whatnot, because I definitely played on a lot of teams that were tougher, you know, against teams that had way more facilities, had way more sponsors, had everything you could ever ask for, all of that stuff. And so
I knew it.
to me, it meant something to, like, you know, defend your homies, defend the hood, defend like the culture that is in place with your team, because, you know, the environment around a lot of teams, and this goes for any, you know, sports team really, but the environment or the community around any team, you know, that culture seeps in to football team cultures or sports teams cultures in general, and it means something, and that's an identity that a lot of teams revolve around, or they have their ideals revolve around that. And so, with all of that being said, this is just a quick note, but Coach Beam definitely seemed a lot more high-strung in the week leading up to this game, because I think he felt like, I don't know if he felt unappreciated, or like his own team was slowly becoming like City College, like getting all this cool stuff like the masseuses and new jerseys and helmets and like free food and all that stuff. But I think for him, and this was a note that I made, for him, it started, I don't know, I think coaching started becoming more about the materialistic things of football rather than just getting out there and whooping on somebody. He didn't like that, because his personality is definitely not that of a, I mean, at least in my opinion, of a super privileged bougie type, right? Or someone who like takes pride in having a bit more than somebody else, if that makes sense. And so he complained about it a lot, saying over and over again, like, "Oh, y'all are so spoiled, y'all are so privileged. They have all this stuff." Even to his family, he was complaining about it, taking it home, you know, after practice and whatnot. And that really stood out to me, and it felt a little bit out of character for Coach Beam, not gonna lie. And so I wanted to see what y'all thought about that, because for me, that was a little weird. Coach Beam, I mean.
Entitled would be the word that I think you're looking for. That was the word you thrown around a lot.
Yeah, entitled. Yes, you're right. Entitled. Yeah. Anyways, what did y'all think that was a little out of character for Coach Beam to be bringing up the word entitled a ton, and kind of, I don't know, just being a little bit more on edge this week? Or was it just rivalry week and, you know, it was going to happen either way?
Go ahead, Cody.
I feel like with Beam, he's like, okay, we are a losing football team right now. Why are we a losing football team? Because these guys aren't working as hard. I think that's where he was at. And so I feel like that was going to happen if they were a losing football team, kind of no matter what. Like, I felt like there was a hint at that happening with each loss that Laney College had.
Yeah, that he was closer to that edge, right?
Yeah, so I don't really think it was about rivalry week. I think it was more just about that they were losing games. So,
okay, yeah, and that's true. Liam?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. And I mean, it makes sense, if you win a championship. Well, just take the Broncos for example, who won the championship, won the Super Bowl in 2015, and then in 2016, we're feeling ourselves a lot, and we lose. We go. I think we went 9-7 or 10-6 or something like that. And we don't even make the playoffs or something. And that's like one of the first times ever that the winning team who won the Super Bowl doesn't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get it. I totally get the idea of like, you win a big championship, people go away, you maybe lose talent, you get talent, new talent, but even that new talent is feeling themselves. They coming in thinking that they're coming to a championship team, everything's great, this is the team, and then you start losing games regardless.
Right.
And
okay.
Maybe some of that work ethic disappears a little bit, especially if you're not hard on people and don't hold them to the same standards that you were when you won.
Right. So some of that hunger, you mean, is a little gone. Yeah. Okay. I got you. And that's interesting because this is a question I wanted to ask y'all as well, because the coaching staff, like, they're at that bar again, right? And to be honest, just a side note, I really love those scenes because it gives a lot of, perspective, because you got all the coaches in one place and, they're obviously bonding and they're tight and it's cool. But anyways, they were talking about, I guess, why Coach Beam was bringing up, like, whole, the entitlement card a lot, right? And so one of them, and there are two sides to this argument, but one of them brought up, like, well, Coach Beam kind of got a point, they started getting all this stuff and they started losing. And then the other coach, I don't remember who the coaches are, I'm sorry, but the other coach went on and said, no, that's a bunch of BS. Like, we just don't have the talent. It's not about entitlement. We just don't have the talent. And then he called the whole entitlement card a cop-out. And so I wanted to ask y'all what y'all thought about that. Because I do kind of agree, because you were kind of hinting at that, Liam, saying, they did lose a couple games and, there's that. But maybe they did lose a little bit of an edge after the championship and whatnot. Maybe they were feeling themselves, not just because, they won a championship, but because they were getting the upgrades and getting the, the riches and all the benefits from winning a championship, right? And so I just wanted to see what y'all thought about that.
I mean, I think you can't blame everything on it, but sure. I think it's certainly a part of it.
Did you say a significant part or no?
I feel like it's maybe kind of a part of it with, like, that first loss, where they looked really sloppy. Yeah. But then after that, I think it's more football related stuff, like backup quarterbacks and injury woes after that. Mm-hmm. But I'd say that for that first game, sure. But to be talking about it in week 5, like, they've already lost games, so, like,
right.
Yeah.
But while I do agree that he needed to address it, right, and just being grateful, I don't think that's why they're bad. They're bad because they're bad. So, like,
right. Okay. Yeah, sure. Go on for it.
Personally, I don't think it was a cop-out. Maybe he went a little hard on the subject, but
sure.
I think he was in his rights to call it out and call out what he was seeing. He is the head coach, and he can tell, he can smell when there's a culture change. And even if that's a culture of frustration or getting upset at injuries. You know, maybe there's that sense of, man, this shouldn't be happening to us. We're the champions. You know,
Yeah,
we shouldn't be here. We're the champions. That could definitely be something that he was smelling out and wanted to call out and address.
right. I mean, honestly, it doesn't take you don't need talent to be a hard worker or to have a championship mentality. It requires zero talent. And I agree with Cody, saying that after the first game, it was a bunch of football stuff, like stuff they couldn't control. And that's fine, But let's keep in mind that first game was a game they shouldn't have lost at all. Like, that team was ranked maybe 20th or 15th or whatever, and then they were ranked in the top 5 or 4. So, I just felt like that kind of, I don't know, that set a really bad tone for the season in general, obviously. So there's that. I also kind of feel like with the injuries piling up and, Dior getting in there and giving them such a good boost, like, that was good, First game with Dior, that was good. I think they might have lost another close one, I want to say. Yes. I think they lost another close one. And then they had that game where RJ had a meltdown. And that game where RJ had a meltdown, I felt like was definitely probably a winnable game. Maybe it's just because they focused on RJ a lot and it seemed like everything was falling apart. In situations like that, you just can't have that. If you truly have a team that is all in, is buying in, they have that championship mentality, they're going to work hard, talent or not. They're going to work hard, talent or not. And, as a coach, from my experience, I've coached more teams, or I've won with teams that have had that championship mentality than teams that have been maybe a top 2 or 3 most talented team I've ever seen or coached,
Right.
And so from my experience, it really doesn't take talent to have that mentality. And it's a frustrating thing, especially when you've won with a team that's had that mentality and won, and then you have a team that's more talented but don't have that mentality, and you're losing games like this. And so there's that. With all that being said, it came to a head at that rivalry game. So let's talk about it. We already talked about Ryan in the first quarter. Not even the first quarter. Throughout the entire game, he missed a lot of open throws. And they weren't bad decisions, don't get it twisted. And it wasn't like it was good coverage. He just overthrew it. There were multiple times he threw it out of the end zone. And then there are like touchdown plays where he'd throw it out of the end zone, or times where he'd have someone wide open and he'd just sail it right over their heads. And oh my God, this was another decision that really bothered me. But do y'all remember the play where he was supposed to hand it off to the running back, and instead of jumping onto the ball, he decided to block a defensive end instead?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah,
That was a
one
really
drove me
disgusting
crazy.
fumble to watch, too.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? Like, give him the ball, but it kind of, I think he was trying to hand it off to him, but he ended up just dropping it and then blocking the defensive end instead of, I don't know. And low-key, that's kind of how he got hurt last time. So, come on, man. That's a really big mental mistake, in my opinion. So, I don't know. But it was a tough defensive matchup in general. Yeah, so here, I'll let y'all jump in real quick, though. So what y'all think initially of the game? Let's say first half. What y'all think about that first half of the game in general?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. One is great defense from both teams, and the other way is disgustingly terrible, awful, icky offense from both teams. Now, this is the way I like to see it. I think Laney College, being the defending champions, played sloppy, horrible, disgusting offense. And then I think that they played spectacular defense. A lot of those turnovers were earned, whereas the Laney offense was giving the ball away, whether it was turnovers or sailing the ball or getting kicks blocked. Like, I think those were more giveaways, and the defense was creating takeaways rather than the San Francisco defense creating takeaways, if that makes sense.
100%.
Right.
They were just picking up what was given to them.
Yeah, for sure. Liam? Sorry, Cody, did you have something more to add on to that?
I was just gonna say I thought it was entertaining though, but I was rolling my eyes like nonstop. You can go to lead him now though.
Yeah, I mean, I was rolling my eyes too, but at the offense because I mean, maybe they just framed it this way, but it definitely looked like the defense was balling out. And then the offense, not even everyone. It really just seemed like it was Ryan Mackey just literally missing every single important throw that there possibly could be.
I'm pretty sure there was some Dior drops, though, to be fair to Ryan. That early.
Yes.
The first half? Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, my bad. So, okay, everyone was not clicking. Let's just say that. Right. Everyone was not clicking, and the rust was more than evident. But go ahead, Liam.
Yeah, I would completely agree. The defense was kicking. Dude, the defense was on top of it. They were just bringing it every play and not giving up at all. And the offense, they were asleep. Nothing really else to say about it. They were asleep.
Yeah, you're right. I love the vibe of the defense too. They brought the energy. They really did, because every time the offense took out the energy and the mood in the stadium, the defense would just pump it back in with a big time play.
Right.
And so, realistically, because I don't even feel like the other team's offense was making that many mistakes. I just felt like the defense was forcing turnovers. But if the offense on the other team was clicking even just a little bit, or they didn't have as many unfortunate mistakes, I definitely feel like they would have been up by a lot more because of the offensive woes. But we'll get to that. So anyways, we're going to halftime. This really stood out to me. This is another big difference when it comes to Coach Beam compared to other Last Chance U coaches. But, you know, he had a different attitude. Like, didn't seem as frustrated going into the locker room as he definitely could be, if that makes sense. Because I felt frustrated for him. And I think we all
commented on that. I actually commented on that too, Liam, when we were watching the episode. I was like, bro, like he was like clapping and being like, come on, let's go. And I'd be like, hold on to the ball. What is wrong with you? Like,
yeah.
And losing my mind because it's all like fundamental mistakes that they're making, right? It's like, what the heck is going on? This is college football. But Bean, you know, like you said, mad respect to him. Because spoiler alert, it ends up working out.
Yes.
He remained positive during the most like mind-numbingly bad offensive football.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. Because I don't know, like I can't say what I would have said, but I would have definitely been hollering at the offense a lot more than Beam apparently did. But yeah, I mean, I love the vibe though, because he knows who he is. Like, he knows who he is. He know he was riding this team pretty tough leading up to the game and whatnot, but he knew in this moment, like, look, I can't be coming out like that because I'll put a lot of players off if I do. You know, so he came out with a lighthearted approach. He was like, hey, you know, this is the kind of game we love. You know, this is what we love. This is what we live for. Let's have some fun with it. You know, this is a battle. And he put a positive spin on it. And that alone motivated probably, oh my God, way more players than if he just came out like slashing at the offense. You know what I'm saying? Did you have anything to add on to that halftime speech or reaction?
Yeah, 100%. I think he, oh my God, I keep saying that. I think he saw that the offense was kind of breaking. That the offense, like, their morale was down. They knew, you know. Sometimes your players know what they're doing wrong, and sometimes it's useless to tell them what they're doing wrong when they know they're doing wrong. You know,
right?
And you got to just pick them up sometimes. That's the mark of a great coach. That's the mark of a great leader.
It is
knowing when to break down and when to build up.
Yeah, and it is. And this is just a note. Compared to last week, I don't know if he could see RJ's little meltdown and whatnot. I'm sure he probably had some word of it because it was pretty visible, to be honest.
Right.
But this is this is a great example of a coach making adjustments week to week, even, like he knew, like, hey, I came a little bit harder at halftime. He approached his players a lot tougher the week before, and was not super merciful at them. And, see what happened. They broke down at the end, or they melted down at the end. But this game, it was a different approach. So let's talk about this second half. A lot went down in that third quarter. Like between injuries and between score changes in general, because it was 0-0 going in, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'll give a quick breakdown. Basically, they came out. Offense was still struggling a little bit. They really, I don't know. It was pretty bad. But basically, I think the biggest thing to take away from this third quarter was that Rajon got hurt. And that was a little bit of a motivator to a degree, because I think he got hurt, and then City College ended up taking the lead, and it was 3-10. Right?
Watching that was hard.
Yeah.
Rajon getting hurt.
Yeah, you're right. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? Go ahead.
Well, Rajon is the best player on this team in the program. I don't know if that's just my opinion, but I feel like that's an accepted truth even within the program. And for him to go down, and then for San Fran to score, that was bad. And then thinking about like these guys, it's been made abundantly clear that everything is on the line this season for almost all the main characters, right? And so you start to worry about, when he's talking on the sideline, I'm scared. Like, I understood why he was scared, because it's like, if he's out for the season, like, how does that impact his recruiting, right? Like, are people going to start rescinding offers? So I understood why that was a freak out moment for both Laney College and Rajon. But once again, Coach Beam responded excellently to it. So, but what were y'all's thoughts?
Go ahead, Liam.
Yeah, Rajon was just scared. You could hear it in his voice, obviously. And most importantly, though, I think he was overreacting, which is totally understandable. I'm not gonna say it's wrong for him to overreact. He's terrified. But the way that he was moving after the injury happened, I think should have just been a clear indicator that it's not as bad as he thinks. And I get why he thought he had a broken ankle, but it's important to try and take a deep breath in those moments and, analyze what's happening. You probably wouldn't be able to walk, or it would be obvious if it was a broken ankle. So that's why I say I think he overreacted. Not in a bad way, just in a scared way, just in a hurt animal kind of way.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that. I think, I would say he overreacted a little bit too. At that point, I definitely feel like it was a mix of like adrenaline and like a lot of emotions going on, which isn't, obviously that's never a really good mix. And so he was all over the place. I don't think he broke it either. He definitely probably fractured something though.
It was a high ankle
that's
sprain.
What it seemed. Yeah, okay, well, we did end up finding out it was a high ankle sprain. I meant like, if I felt like he probably fractured something.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it was a high ankle sprain, but high ankle sprains could still be tough, because those are those injuries that kind of just linger. Like sometimes they don't ever actually heal properly, or at least in a season they don't, and they just linger. And so for even that, that's definitely scary to think about, because Laney had 4 more games after this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so with that in mind, a high ankle sprain could definitely take you out for all 5. be good,
Right.
you know, I assume you'd probably be good after those 5 games, like for sure. But maybe if you try to rush it back after 3 and then you get hurt and then you know, that's a whole thing. And so I definitely get it. And I love Coach Beam. Oops, sorry. I love Coach Beam's response to the whole thing, you know, just showing love, you know, being who he is, right? Being a player's coach to a degree and being like, hey man, like it's all good, like you're strong, like it'll be okay. Don't worry about today. We'll get it taken care of. Tomorrow we'll get back to it, type of thing. And then the players really rallied around that. And so that was definitely a low point. Maybe in this whole season, I would say as well, because it was against a rivalry and they were losing. And so what happened next really, as someone who's been in these kind of rivalries before, you know, at least narrative wise, it really bothered me. I'm sure it bothered y'all a lot, but it really bothered me when City College like took a 7-point lead. They're not even winning by 2 scores, but a 7-point lead, and then started dancing on them right before the kickoff. Like, not just the players on the field, but everyone, like pretty much everyone. And I don't know. I wanted to see how y'all felt about that, because to me, that's the ultimate disrespect. Maybe not the ultimate disrespect, but it's pretty. Well, actually, yeah, it is kind of the ultimate disrespect, because it's like if, you know, you were showboating or something like that. Like this game's already a wrap, even though there's a whole quarter to play, whole quarter and a minute to play. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it was completely disrespectful, and that's part of the fun of football, is sometimes you get into, you know, positions where you can disrespect your opponent, especially in a rivalry, and that can be a lot of fun. It can also be heartbreaking to be on the other side of it. And it can be heartbreaking to be disrespectful and then still lose, you know? So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Cody.
I was going to say, that moment when they started dancing is when I knew Laney was going to win that football game.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Like, right there, I was like, Coach Beam isn't going to stand for this. And I know that there are strong emotional leaders on this team, like Dior, and they're not going to stand for it. The Laney College is going to win this football game, especially with Rajon being sidelined and then, you know, still trying to hobble back into the game. Like, I know that made the cornerbacks play even better in that moment for that game. And then to watch, like, because they're basically, okay, like, not only was the sportsmanship poor, you know, dancing on your home field, right, on your rival's home field, right, but it's right after their best player just headed to the sideline with an injury. Mm-hmm. That's why they thought they won. And so I think Laney College was like, okay, first off, we're more than Rajon Wright, and second off, we're going to win the rest of this football game for Rajon Wright. And needless to say, that's what they did.
Exactly. It wasn't a pretty win. Let's just put that in, keep that in mind. It wasn't a pretty win, but they found a way to get it done. You know, and they came back. That first touchdown. Or wait, hold up, because they kicked off the ball, and then Ryan Mackey, he led a really great drive, and he kind of came alive. Well, they all came alive, and they scored a touchdown, didn't they? Or was it a field goal?
There was a really good kickoff return where the returner got kind of nailed by the punter. I thought there was going to be some bad blood after that. I thought there was going to be a fight after that. But that happened, and then I think they drove down and scored.
A touchdown?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And so that was big. And yeah, you could see some of the fire there too, and I loved it. You know, and then eventually a couple of defensive stops and whatnot, and then they kicked a field goal and they win the game 13-10, basically. Before like we completely move on, though, I really liked how Dior, after they scored that touchdown, how Dior was like, "Hey, like don't be doing none of this stupid dancing stuff. Like, let's just stomp him and get out of here," type of thing, right? That really stood out to me. New had a really good, I guess, moment where the running back got like, it was like a one of those shoves after the whistle, and the running back shoved the kid back, and the New got in his face and was all like, "Hey man, like, what are you trying to do? Like, you can't be doing none of that." And so all those things together really just showed me, like, how many, what you said, Cody, how many emotional leaders they have on this team, right? Like I said, sometimes you're just not going to have all the talent in the world. It is what it is. But if you have that championship mentality, and that starts with your emotional leaders and having multiple, not just Dior, but having multiple emotional leaders that are like, hey, let's go get this thing done, on the defense, on the offense, captains, non-captains, that means something. And so they all came through, and I felt like this was as solid of a team win as they come by.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And, let's talk about New, because this was the best game I think all of us have seen from New, and he balled out. He was aggressive. He played with some rage. He played with some fury, and he dominated. I feel like.
Yeah, he played fantastic. That's also why it was a little frustrating why Ryan wasn't getting it going too,
right?
In my opinion, or the offense in general, because that running back had a really bad fumble in the first quarter, which was bad. I agree. I was impressed as well. Cody, did you have anything else to add on to that?
Not really. The town won, so that was exciting.
Come strong to the town.
Oh,
that was exciting to watch. Liam had his own little call out because, I was like, "Yeah, Simon's going to be like, yeah, I was part of that town," and then Liam had his own little call out of me. So, Simon, the reality is that we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I was like, Cody's just out here romanticizing Oakland now because he's part of the town too. He's from A-Town, just thinking that A-Town's better than Denver, and Denver gets all the cool stuff. And
I dissociated into thinking Oakland and Aurora were the same place.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, but see, that's the beauty of this documentary, though, because if you are a football player or an athlete or a competitor of any sorts, those are the type of things that naturally come up, right? Like the age-old narrative of the privilege versus the not privileged, that's a thing, and so that's the beauty of it. And I don't know, I definitely felt with it as well. Obviously, this whole series wouldn't be popular if nobody actually related to anything that went on. But
right,
there you go. Oh yeah.
No, I totally get it, and Cody said Longmont's the town and Boulder's the city, which to a much lesser degree, but
okay.
I can kind of admit to feeling stuff like that, feeling like the rich people in Niwot or the rich people in Boulder always got the cool stuff, and Longmont had to, we had one field for the city to play football on for a while that all the teams would have to go and play football on for their home games.
If you're not from Colorado, nobody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that being said, I kind of said it earlier, but my bad. I talked over somebody. But hey, when you come to the town, you gotta come strong. It is what it is. This is rivalry week, or it was. So So this is a good dub. Oh man! First off, the cinematography in this whole episode was awesome, and the swells with the music was great as well. I might add. What is it? There Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City.
Yes, sir.
That was a fantastic music choice. Just throwing that out there. But anyways, coming up, got a film breakdown. Kind of not really a career breakdown, more of a film breakdown. We're gonna break down the film of former JUCO or former Independence Community College JUCO player Carlos Thompson, wide receiver. Coming up next. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner. We're here back at it with another film breakdown, this time of a wide receiver. I don't think we've ever done a wide receiver film breakdown yet.
Nope.
Yeah, we haven't. So this is good because this is Cody's bread and butter. So let's get right into it. We got Carlos Thompson. Let me give the tea on Carlos Thompson real quick before we get into the film. Another last chance U player from the indie seasons. He was in the first season that they featured Independence Community College. He was one of Malik Henry's many weapons on this team. Malik Henry had three really big, okay, maybe not three. He had 4 or 5 really big weapons on this team. 3 of them were receivers. They're led by the vet, which is Carlos Thompson, followed by my boy. Well, okay, I don't want to associate myself with him anymore, but Marquise King, and then Calvin Jackson as well. All guys who are D1 talents, in my opinion. Carlos Thompson, he's a Texas kid. He's from Manville, Texas, and their football, I shouldn't say their football team, but their high school football team over at Manville is definitely one of the perennial playoff contenders. They're pretty good. They'll win a state championship every now and then, and so he was part of that excellent program over there. He ended up committing to Texas Tech originally. He played his freshman year there. Y'all aren't on that season yet. Whoops. Okay. But anyways, in Last Chance U, they actually showed a highlight from his Texas Tech days. It's a really good kickoff return that he had for a touchdown as a freshman, and he killed it. He did his thing over there, but unfortunately, a combination of grades and attitude problems, just a bunch of stuff, nothing legal, just a bunch of those problems came up, and so he was basically kicked out of Texas Tech. They said, hey, if you're going to keep acting immature, then we can't have you around, because you're not the big boss here. And even if you were, this is our program, not yours. And so basically he took, I want to say a year or so, maybe a year and a half off from football, and he was just working. And then, kind of like a lot of the Last Chance U players, he figured out, hey, I kind of hate working at a Walmart or being a car valet, or I think he was a car valet and whatnot, and I actually want to, play football as a career, because that would be kind of cool. And so he ended up following Jason Brown, the head coach at Independence Community College. And he followed him to Garden City at first, because JB was, I think, the OC over there. And so he followed him there, and then JB obviously got into that very, very visible and vocal dispute with the coach. And so he left before the season started and brought Carlos with him back to Cali. And then eventually they both ended up at Independence Community College. And so I want to say he was either 23 or 24 when he got to Independence. And it was a long ride, because leading up to then, he still was pretty immature, was getting in trouble all the time, and was just acting a fool, But he's a great talent. I mean, that's really the only reason he's stuck. He's a great talent, even though he's only 5'9", 185. And he's electrifying, he has great speed and all of that stuff. But before I get into all of that, let's talk about the strengths of Carlos Thompson. We saw some of his film. So y'all go ahead and start, since y'all didn't watch this season yet. But Cody or Liam, what are the strengths of Carlos Thompson?
Liam, you mind if I go? So the first thing that stood out to me about Carlos Thompson was his body control / balance. There were a lot of times where he was shoved off of either his route, or, if he was on special teams, as far as kickoff goes, and he was trying to stay in his lane, he did a great job of maintaining that balance and then getting right back on track. There was one play in particular that was a pass play that went down the sideline where he caught the ball in bounds, and it was kind of a tough catch. And then he juked inside, and somebody tried to pull him out of bounds, and he stayed on one foot and just kind of spun in a circle before another person had to come in and hit him. And the truth is, if no one came in and hit him the rest of the way out of bounds, he would have spun 360 degrees on one foot, went facing forward again, and would have ran up the sideline and scored. So he just has great control over his body, and that makes him dangerous at the receiver position, and he has to have that control at his size. So he definitely knows what he has to excel at, and then continues to excel at that. You know, he had some good sideline catches. He's really good at high pointing the ball too, which is a part of that body control, right? And knowing your body as well, just knowing, hey, when do I have to jump? Like, there's a lot that goes into that. That's just like muscle memory to a point of being in control of your body. So that jumped off right from the get-go for me. I also really liked his versatility. You know, he was on kickoff. He was on kickoff return, punt return. He was on punt. He was on offense. And on offense, you know, he could also block at the wide receiver position. He could run out routes, in routes, go routes. So, you know, he's just a really good athlete, is the truth. And just kind of seeing him play all over the field reminded me of a few years ago, like a Denard Robinson at Michigan kind of guy that was literally everywhere on the field. And I was a little surprised to not see any wildcat of him just because of his athleticism. But when Raheem Boyd is in the backfield, I guess that's what happens. The last strength that I have, because I do my sets of 3, is I loved his intensity. Like, he's a super physical receiver, and he doesn't let being 5'9" take away from that. Like, he loves to hit people. He loves to get tackles. He loves blocks. I'd even argue that he looks like he's having more fun blocking people than he does when he catches the ball. And when he catches the ball, yeah, he can juke, but he's not afraid to lower his shoulder, and he fell forward almost every time he lowered his shoulder. So he is a very fiery 185 pounds, and that you just got to love it about him. So
go ahead, Liam. You could go next.
Yeah. Definitely seemed to play a little bit, well, I mean, just from the highlight reel, seemed to play a little bit more of the return man role than just like a straight up receiver. But he excelled in both positions, I would say. He has a lot of nice, like subtle little moves, like just a little throw of his shoulders to throw somebody off of where he's going, and then kind of just run the opposite way. You know, not like a full juke because the guy's too far away, but you know, even stuff like that can help you out. So those were beautiful to watch, and he's got great footwork, obviously, nice hands, and yeah, seemed to have real competitive spirit.
All right, nice. Yeah, hey, I mean, absolutely agreed. Look, he's a playmaker. You know, if if you need a play, like, he's a playmaker, and he's made some pretty big plays. Some of the plays there, like in the reel that I sent y'all, like alone, it doesn't look like a big deal. Like, you know, it's maybe a 20 or 30-yard gain, but in those games, at least how it was framed in Last Chance U, those plays were like big time, like mood changers. You know what I mean? Like, some players just make plays that, you know, just they swing the mood of the entire game, if that makes sense. And so I feel like this is a little bit more of an intangible type of thing, what I'm trying to say here, but he definitely has a really good feel for that. You know what I mean? Like, when to make those plays that just, you know, swing the mood of a game. And it's a hard thing to, like, I don't know. I'm having kind of a hard time putting it together. Do y'all know what I mean? Like, you know, there are just some players that just know, like, hey, right here, right now, I gotta make a statement. Not just because, but right here, right now is the perfect time to make a statement. In fact, if that makes any sense. Not just babbling here. Like, does that actually make sense though?
Yeah. Well, obviously, context is important, and you know, any good field position that's provided by a player is integral, and it makes everyone else's jobs easier. So, you know, you're not just babbling, you're spitting facts right now.
Okay. Just making sure.
You're not crazy, Simon.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Y'all were a little silent on me, so I was like, oh shoot. But all right, okay, cool. All right, yeah. So he is definitely a playmaker. I can't talk about his Tech days, but while at Independence, he was definitely a leader, at least in the season that I saw. He was definitely a leader, someone who held people accountable. Like we talked about Malik Henry last week or whatever it was, right? And in my opinion, Carlos Thompson was a way better leader and much more of an emotional leader of that team than the quarterback. That says something because, everyone's going to naturally rally around the quarterback. But for a receiver to do that, especially, that's big time to me. And so, all of those things said, those are just the intangibles of Carlos Thompson. Also, he's just a naturally gifted athlete, great hands, really good speed. Like you said, Cody, like good strength as well. For someone who's only 5'9", 185, very impressive strength, I would say. He's a good blocker. He's a football player. He's a football player straight up. And I know you did say that you were surprised to not see many Wildcat plays out there, but I'm not going to spoil it because, saying what the plays were would spoil it. But he did actually have a Wildcat package made for him, and it was pretty, at least in my opinion, it was integral to that game. So there you go. I don't know why it wasn't on his highlight reel. I think maybe it's just because he wanted to show wide receiver film primarily, though. So maybe that's it. Anyways, with that being said, what are some weaknesses of Carlos Thompson that y'all could see? Should I go first or?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. So weaknesses for Carlos Thompson. Look, because he was a JUCO star, we are nitpicking a little bit. So just throwing that out there. Also, I wasn't a wide receiver, so throwing that out there as well. But I felt like his routes could have been a little bit more crisp, have a little bit more precision to them. There are definitely routes that he rounded off a lot, I felt. And look, with Malik Henry and, with all that talent on that team in general, because they had a ton of offensive talent, you could get away with that. Malik Henry's talented enough where he'll put the ball wherever you are. Right? Like, he doesn't need you to run the best route for him to give you a chance to make a play. So that's just that. But I guess that's the benefits of working with a good quarterback. But anyways, just, that's discipline stuff. Like, just run the route. Just run it with precision. And so for me, that was the biggest thing, honestly. That was the biggest thing that came to mind. Actually, I can't really think of a whole ton of other weaknesses. So Cody, Liam, y'all go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree that his route running seemed a little bit weak, and ultimately that's what's going to hold him back from taking those next steps. So while maybe it is nitpicking at this level, at the next level, it's not really going to be nitpicking. Would be my opinion on it.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that he can't fix it, and not to say that it will be a problem going further for him. But that is something that you have to pay attention to, and I know a lot of guys rely on their leadership skills and their speed and the other physical skills, and maybe sometimes less figure out the fundamentals, or let the fundamentals in the basics fall apart a little bit.
We see that a lot too with all of the players that we've reviewed so far as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's a big deal in my mind. Maybe I'll just take a step further and make it a bigger deal than you made it with that argument. Okay. But that's fine. Like we did say, it is nitpicking at this level. Yeah, he was rounding them off, but he still ran the routes well. He still got open, and he still did fine.
Well,
otherwise, I would say, what's his size? That's
5'9", 185. It's not great, but for a wide receiver, it's not the worst.
Right.
Dior is smaller. Dior Walker Scott, he's smaller, I think. So
that is a weakness, though, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it's not the greatest size in the world, and not that it's ever held people back before, but it has. Or what am I saying? And it has held people back before, but people also succeed in spite of it, and sometimes succeed because of it. So if he can just make it work to his advantage in almost every situation, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
Cody.
gonna echo some of the same things that y'all brought up too, and then maybe just like a couple other things. But yeah, being 5'9", if I'm a recruiter, that is kind of a weakness, right? Yeah, like Simon said, they're smaller, but when you combine 5'9" with some of these other things, then it starts to become a problem, right? Where, he rounds out routes, but that's not as concerning to me as him drifting on those in routes, on slants or ins. Mm-hmm. He ends up going 4 or 5 yards past where the route's supposed to be. And Simon, you mentioned Malik Henry's a Division I talent, right? He can compensate with that, and there's chemistry there. But that's how you get interceptions thrown for quarterbacks, is you drift away and a linebacker or a cornerback who had no business making the play because you're supposed to cut them off on that in route now has a chance to make that play. You also put yourself at risk of just floating right into a safety or a linebacker when you drift like that. And that's kind of the last point that I want to bring up. And one of his weaknesses is he's pretty reckless. So I bring this up upon watching the film where, there was a punt return or two where he catches it and the other team is all around him and he makes a play out of it, right? But bro, that's not going to fly outside of junior college, and you are going to get lit up and you're going to fumble the ball. Like, that is just not going to fly. There was also the kickoff return where he kind of bobbled it. And, at his size and speed and stature and the type of player he is, if he were to go to the next level, I think would be as a special teams player. But when you make mistakes at the JUCO level, like, not fair catching a punt where you're surrounded by the entire enemy team, not necessarily muffing a kickoff return, but, bobbling it a little bit and getting it off the ground before taking it, like, that doesn't work at the next level. And I think that those things combined with his size, combined with, his drifting on routes and his rounding out is what led to him not getting a Division I offer.
Well, okay, here. I got to throw this out there because
he can go D1 after JUCO.
Yeah, he didn't, but that's not because of his talent. So here, I should probably throw this out there. So like I said, I brought up his age earlier, and it was kind of for a reason because he took a little bit of time, but because he played his freshman year, his very first year, right when he got on campus, his Division I clock started ticking, and so because he took so much time to get back, which it was a pretty sizable amount of time, he was no longer eligible to play Division I football. So that's why he didn't get a D1 scholarship. It wasn't the talent at all, I don't think. At least I feel like it wasn't. But yeah, so and they explained that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so they knew, he knew that. This was like his second or third junior college he was at. So he knew that. But yeah, so just throwing that out there.
Fair enough. But yeah, those were some of the weaknesses that I saw from Carlos Thompson. But otherwise, a very special athlete, in my opinion. And like I said, the strengths that he had were just 3 that I thought of. But, and other forms of route running, like improv, he did a great job of reading where the quarterback needed to go and following the quarterback there when the play broke down. So, what he doesn't check off the box in some areas, he puts 2 check marks in other areas.
Right, exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to say, Cody, though, I think obviously we watched the same highlights, so I think we're talking about the same play. I had a different feeling about the one where he kind of caught the ball with everybody around him. I felt like he kind of, and maybe this is me overthinking, but I felt like he stood maybe 5 yards behind where the ball was going to land, and so he let the defenders come in thinking that he was going to be trying to catch it there, when really the ball was going to be landing 5 yards ahead, and then he ran forward 5 yards, caught the ball, and took off, letting them run right past him. That was just my personal thought on it. So I thought that was really cool. But maybe that was too reckless. Maybe that'll just get you crushed in the NFL.
Fair enough, but yeah, I definitely think that's just not a risk that that you take.
Should take.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. No, I get that. There are things that he needed to fine tune. Or honestly, he was probably good at him. Like, he just didn't have the discipline to continue to show that off. But, it is what it is, I guess. So there's that. I wanted to ask y'all real quick what y'all thought about, I guess, his physicality when it came to the point of catch. Because we didn't really see him catch a lot of contested balls. That's probably just because he's getting separation and whatnot. But his teammates, though, no spoilers. Well, actually, I think maybe you saw this game, but his teammates definitely they're like all around the same height, so don't get it twisted, and around the same weight as well. But his teammates, in my opinion, definitely showed a lot more physicality at the point of catch than Carlos did at times. Like, I could probably trust his teammates to catch a jump ball better than I would Carlos. And so I just wanted to see what y'all thought about it.
I only saw him catch 2 jump balls on this highlight reel, but he looked to be, I guess it wasn't like his physicality, it was his athleticism that jumped out to me, so I could kind of see that point. Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure you heard me.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I get that. He has strong hands, too. No?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he still has strong hands. I don't know. I think his teammates just maybe they're just a little bit stronger. They're not that much bigger at all, though. So I don't know, but okay. Well, with all that being said, I'm going to tell you what happened to Carlos. So, he, like I said, he couldn't go to a D1. In my opinion, he was a D1 talent, at least an FCS talent, and he couldn't do any of that. So he ended up going to a D2. He went to I can't say the best D2 out there because I'm not super familiar with D2 schools like that. But he went to a school with a lot of really good facilities, or at least they're known for that. And he did well. He did his thing. He put up pretty much the same numbers he did at the JUCO. And then in 2019, sorry, 1 second. Let me see. I think it's 2019. Yeah. So in 2019, he declared for the NFL draft. And he had another year of playing at the D2. And in my opinion, he should have took that year. Because his stats weren't like record breaking at all. Like, he had a solid like 900 to 1,000 yards and then a good amount of touchdowns, but nothing that would like get the eye of an NFL team unless they're already looking, which I don't think they were because it's a D2 school. So there you go. But they ended up declaring. Nobody picked him up. Then the XFL actually sent him an invitation to their draft, and then nobody picked him up.
Wow, the XFL's pretty bad about that, huh?
Yeah, they've done that to almost all of the Last Chance U players. Which actually all of the Last Chance U players, not gonna lie.
Kidding.
I don't think any of them actually made in the XFL. So that's interesting. I don't know if that's just like a marketing ploy. And they really had no actual like intent signing Last Chance U players, but yeah, because they had a chance to get Ronald Ollie, didn't get him. Okay. Well, I guess there was one. They wanted to get John Franklin, who's this really fast quarterback / cornerback, and they did. And then the Bears signed him, or someone signed him. So there you go. And obviously, he took the NFL offer because it's better than an XFL offer. And so yeah, but. Basically, right now he is he's a free agent. At least that's what it says in his Twitter bio, an NFL free agent apparently. And I don't know, he just hasn't had any chances at all at any of the training camps, and I think it's really sad because, in my opinion, I think he's definitely worth, he's definitely worth a look. at least an invite, like at least see like, all right, we could bring him to our training camp and he could just be an extra body and we'll see what he has, but not even that. As far as I know, he has not had any chances with any football league, that is, not even the CFL, which is actually kind of crazy to me. So I don't know. That's honestly more of an example. It's not, look, he's not kept out of the pros because of his route running. I think that's kind of stupid if it was, because I don't feel like his route running was that bad.
I'd say that's probably it though, but he's very talented. I say if he ever went to like training camps, because they do occasionally have like tryouts and stuff, he could try and do that, but he's probably past that point.
Yeah, I would say so, just a little bit, which is a shame. Like, he's a good talent. This is a good lesson to teach though, because if say he was like 3 or 4 years younger, or okay, maybe not even 4 years, say he was even 2 or 3 years younger, and like didn't take that year off, or didn't bounce around from junior college to junior college trying to get his like stuff together, and he'd probably be a pro football player by now, or at least have a chance to be a pro football player by now. But although that's why choices are important like that, sometimes it's not always about how good you could play football, but like, your availability, whether it's, legal troubles or maturity issues, stuff like that. And we talked about it with Chad Kelly, and this is just another example. Obviously, he ended up, like, he doesn't have the same problems Chad Kelly apparently still does. Like, he's way more mature than Chad Kelly. But it's just one of those things where he doesn't have that kind of privilege. So, that's a good lesson, though. You could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't get your stuff together eventually, it is what it is. So, anyways, any last thoughts, remarks, statements on that?
Nope. I wish the best of luck to Carlos Thompson in the future. And yeah, that's all you can hope for. And, even if it takes you a long time to get somewhere, Carlos Thompson, his story isn't over. Who knows where he's going to go, whether that's to another team in, professional sports, or whether he does something else with his life. You can still live a good life. So
it's true. There's always something after football. Also, fun fact, Carlos Thompson liked my tweet about him deserving a shot in the XFL. I don't know if I told y'all this, but
no.
It was a while ago. So,
I think you told me, but I didn't know who you were talking about yet.
Yeah. So hey, Carlos, if you want to come onto the show, you're always welcome. We have some, I don't know. I thought Cody's interview with Martin was awesome. So we have some good interviewers over here, or some pretty all right ones. So you're always welcome. But With that being said, or Liam, sorry, did you have anything else to add on?
No, not really. Yeah, hopefully he can find a job, because his skill, his talent is going to waste currently.
Yeah, and these are his prime years too. So
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you could. I don't know. Well, he'll figure something out, I'm sure, once this COVID stuff goes away. It's a real unfortunate timing as well, because this would technically be only his second year since leaving college. So he technically still had a lot of time. But anyways, hey, thanks for rocking with us here at the Playmakers Corner. Make sure you check out our previous episodes, which are on all major streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Show us some love on social media as well. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And yeah, hey, if you got somebody that ideally, like, a high school level athlete that you want us to break down film for, let us know. Send us over the film, and hopefully we could break that down as best we can, and maybe even get that athlete on for an interview as well. We love talking to new people, getting new perspectives, and all of that great stuff. So with that being said, I am one of your co-hosts, Simon Villanos.
I'm Cody Stoffer.
And I'm Liam Hughes.
And we'll see y'all next time. Show us some love on that social media, though. Peace.
Bye.